Did you notice in the Machzor how they have sermon in big letters? What is that meant to do? To scare me or scare the congregation? I'm not really. What'd you say?
When you were in Sunday school, that's when you went to the bathroom.
Well, they had sermons in Sunday school?
You had other people, I've heard.
Did you ever hear of having a sermon in Sunday school? No, okay. Martha, I believe you. I believe you. Okay, second thing before I start. Gratitude journal. I hope you haven't forgotten. Gratitude journal. I'm not reading you my entry today, but it was a good entry. Don't forget your gratitude journal. If you haven't done it, you can start anytime. I'm not going to ask people about the gratitude journal, but it's helping me. Friends, how much influence do any of us have in this world? Really? It's a big world out there. How do we really affect change? Scientists, and I researched this so carefully, so don't accept what I'm saying, but don't accept it. You shouldn't accept anything at face value from any clergy person, but that's besides the point. That's what fanaticism is. We had a discussion in confirmation class, what's a cult? And the answer was, when people get around a leader and they don't question the leader, that's never possible in Judaism. Okay, but in spite of that, listen to what I have to say. Okay. Rabbi Landi, can you make up your mind? Scientists have developed a theory on the consequences of small changes. It is called the butterfly effect. Many of you are familiar with it. The butterfly effect describes the short and long-term consequences of individual actions. In 1961, Edward Lorenz, a scientist, was using a numerical computer model to rerun a weather prediction. When, as a shortcut on a number in a sequence, he entered the decimal 0.506 instead of entering the full 0.506127. He thought the rounding off of the decimal would have no effect. So what did he do? He went for a coffee break. That's what all scientists do. And he returned to discover something unexpected. The tiny rounding off of the decimal produced a completely different weather scenario. The starting weather conditions had been virtually identical. The two predictions were anything but. In 1963 paper for the New York Academy of Sciences, Lorenz discussed the fascinating discovery. He stated that, quote, one meteorologist remarked that the findings suggest that one flap of a seagull's wings could change the course of weather forever. Later speeches in papers of Lorenz used the more poetic flap of a butterfly's wing, and the butterfly effect was born. So what does this really mean? The butterfly effect indicates that a butterfly's wings might create small changes in the atmosphere that may ultimately alter the path of a tornado or delay it, using that as an example. Accelerate or even prevent the occurrence of a tornado in another location. A butterfly flutters its wings in the Amazonian jungle, and subsequently a storm ravages half of Europe. Things that change the world are often that tiny. Now, this is a serious theory. It's part of chaos theory, not some silly internet nonsense. Chaos theory is the science of surprises, of the nonlinear and the unpredictable. It teaches us to expect the unexpected. But Lorenz's butterfly effect idea is not limited to weather forecasting and applies to every area of life, including the impact of individuals and small groups can have on the world well beyond their immediate sphere of activity. A little something can bring about big effect. I call it the power of one. the power of a single act. Now, history buffs and writers like Ray Bradbury and Stephen King know how much it is to have fun with the what-if game. A game about how different the world would be if just one small amount of history was altered. Let me give you two examples, very different. One imaginary, one real. Lee Harvey Oswald shot and killed President Kennedy in 1963, the most traumatic moment of my childhood. How many people were alive and remember that? Raise your hand. That was the event. Here's the question. What if Lee Harvey Oswald had missed? He would have been arrested and tried, maybe executed. And probably Jack Ruby would not have killed him. And Kennedy would have lived with better security. And he would run again as president, obviously. And most probably, he would have gained a second term. But here we come to a tormenting possibility. And I started focusing in on this as I was imagining this. Many historians believe that he was questioning the involvement of the U.S. in Vietnam and would have withdrawn the troops. Now, what could have happened? In 1982, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was dedicated in Washington, D.C., inscribed with the names of 57,939 members of the U.S. Armed Forces who had died or were missing as a result of the war. What would these men and women have done in life? What could they have contributed to the world? What suffering, anguish, addiction, mental illness, child delinquency would have been prevented if these soldiers had never gone to war? 3 bullets, 2, the second and third killed Kennedy, all in 19 seconds. The power of one. Second example, one moment, one individual, the world was changed, a true story. Anne Sullivan was a daughter of Irish immigrants who were forced to leave home during a famine. Anne contracted trachoma and lost most of her eyesight when she was 5. She lost her mother to tuberculosis at 8. She was abandoned by her father at 10 and sent to a poorhouse. When an inspector visited the home to investigate reports of abuse, Anne begged him to take her away and put her in a school. She was taken to Perkins School for the Blind, where she fought her way through school to graduate as valedictorian of her class. At the time of her graduation, a man named Arthur Keller contacted the school looking for someone to help his deaf-blind daughter who was beyond the help of her family. Anne moved into the Keller home and began to work with little Helen. She began to experiment with different techniques and through years of investment was able to help Helen learn to read, write, and speak. Helen Keller went on to graduate from college and become a global advocate for people with disabilities. She wrote many books, traveled over 30 countries, changing the world along the way. She received honorary degrees from universities around the world. Today, there are streets all over the world named after Helen Keller, and Anne Sullivan was a nobody in the eyes of the world who invested her life in one other nobody. And she changed everything for people with disabilities. The power of one. Judaism so much believes in this. The power of the singular act. During the 16th century, Rabbi Isaac Luria of Tzfat observed that in this world, like ours, many things seem to be wrong. People suffer, there's hunger and there's hate. And Luria asked, how can this happen? Perhaps it is because God needs our help. He offered his wonderful mystical understanding of creation, not to be taken literally, but to be inspiring, provocative. And here is how he describes creation. When first setting out to make the world, God planned to pour holy light into everything to make it real. God prepared vessels to contain the light, but something went wrong. Lights were so bright that the vessels burst, shattered into millions of pieces, like a glass dropping on the floor. The Hebrew phrase that Luria used for this was the breaking of the vessel, shvirat kelim. Okay, I want you to really understand it. Here's one of the vessels. If this was wood and I dropped it, what would happen? Shatter. So the whole purpose of this idea is we are meant to go into the world, take the shards, the shattered glass, and our goal as individuals is one shard at a time to release the divine potential in that shard. One shard at a time. That's Lurianic Kabbalah. How do we do this? How do we liberate this divine potential within the shards, one person at a time? We do it through simple acts of caring, loving, healing, generosity. Singular acts that bring healing to our broken world, the power of one. We can be like butterflies. With the smallest deeds, we can change the world. For example, we live in a world where many are undervalued, demeaned, degraded. People can be so hurtful to others, we are often brutal to each other. That's why in the prayer al-Khait that we recited, most of them are verbal sins, a warning to mind our tongues. Careless speech in Judaism is considered to be toxic. It's like murdering people. That's how serious it is. But what if we intentionally did the opposite? When engaging people, saying something that raises them up, which makes them feel good about themselves. By saying one affirming sentence such as, I admire your kindness. I respect the way that you handle that. You have a lot of courage to do that. Thank you for putting yourself out for me. You are so kind to have said that to me. You have been so helpful. You didn't have to do that, but thank you. You did a great job. You can fill in the phrases. If we just intentionally said these things, those kinds of phrases are quite consequential. Kindness and affirmation goes a long way. The power of one. Now, I've spoken from the pulpit for 40 years. This is my 40th high holiday as an ordained rabbi. I mean, that's crazy. It's completely crazy. And I started calculating, and I've said over the years, I've given about 3,000 sermons. I mean, that's crazy too. And I've had these moments when someone has come up to me and they have said, what you said from the pulpit years ago, it's something I needed to hear. I thought you were speaking to me, it changed my life. And that at the moment, I'm thinking to myself, who is this person? What did I say? It's hard for me to believe I had any impact. Evidently, I did. All of us have that potential impact all the time, the power of one. Now, April 28th is an important day in our yearly calendar. It is Pay It Forward Day, a worldwide celebration of kindness that takes place every year. And it's quite simple, as you know, you don't pay love back, you pay it forward. And someone else gives you a gift in your hour of need, you don't pay it to them, you return that favor to giving it to someone else. This is a true story. I found it on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. Danny Panetta. Okay? I was waiting in line to pay for my groceries while maintaining my 6 feet distance when this man cut in front of me. He didn't appear to notice me. He was an older gentleman. I didn't say anything and maintained my distance, and when it was time for him to pay, he reached in his back pocket and pulled out a small notepad. He forgot his wallet. He looked a bit disappointed and embarrassed. I stepped up and told the cashier I'll take care of the groceries, which consisted of milk and chocolate chip cookies. He was more than grateful. He thanked me, and off I went. The cashier tells me, "He cut you off. You paid for his groceries? Why?" Such a good answer. Just such a good answer. I said, "I hope that one day my dad forgets his wallet. Someone will step up and buy his milk and cookies." With all the negativity that goes around in this world, I thought it would be nice to share this moment. I should have just read that and sat down. Cynically, we could say that this supermarket incident is cute. But so what? We'd be wrong to dismiss it, because who knows how the milk and cookies gesture impacted the cashier and this elderly man? Or who knows how that act influenced others who were watching? It happened in less than a minute, the power of one. Jonathan Sacks, one of my heroes, the former chief rabbi of the United Kingdom, said, "For each of us, God may have a task, work to perform, a kindness to show, a gift to give, a love to share, a loneliness to ease, pain to heal, or broken lives to help mend. Discerning that task, hearing God's call, gives life meaning and purpose. Where what we want to do meets what needs to be done, that is where God wants us to be." So on cold Nidre night, let us contemplate how we can do something really small that will really matter. And I believe that tonight on Kol Nidre, we can make a difference. Now, this is the time, Daniel. Now, you're going to receive something in a moment. Do me a favor. Could you go and help him? It's good. You're going to get a card, and you're going to look at the card with me. And if you have extra cards, just hold on to them and give them back to us, because we want to give them out. Okay? Now I got to find this. Good. The people up here also need some too. I don't know if I can. You deserve it. Okay, good. So what we're going to do tonight is something that I've been working with the Social Justice Committee and our wonderful chairperson, Susie Block, who unfortunately couldn't be here this evening. She's a little under the weather. And I have this Kol Nidre Mitzvah Pledge card, 5783. And here's what it's about: the power of one act. And my goal is that every one of us can pledge to do one act. I don't want you to volunteer for 3 acts. I want one act. 2 is too many, because I know we can do 1. And once we say we're going to do 2, I'm not sure we can do you'll even do 1. That's my understanding of the human condition. So let's look at this. So 1 time a year, participate in the mitzvah day. 1 pint a year, give blood. 1 time a month, contribute food to the NRT collection bin. 1 time a year, call a friend with whom you have lost touch. 1 used coat, donate yearly to our clothing drive. 1 gift card to donate for Hanukkah Christmas gift drive. 1 professional service offered to a needy person. An hour of law advice, medical, whatever, dentist. 1 hour of service to someone who needs it and can't afford it. To come to Friday night services once a month, not because it's not for you, it's for us. It's building our community and feeling responsibility to our community. It is tutoring a student. We have monthly tutoring. You can find out through the social justice. 1 time a month, deliver food from the JFS food pantry. They need drivers. 1 grocery card given to a homeless person once in a year. 1 time a month, bake something for owning Shabbat. If you turn over, you put your name, your email address, cell phone number, and what you do is check it off. Check off one of the things, write your name, Send it in, put the information on, send it in, or bring it in, or email it to me. Take a picture of it with both sides of it, and send it to me by email, whatever you want to do. And for all those who are streaming out there, you're not going to escape this. There are more cards than we need. We're going to send them to you, so don't worry. But you have to tell us who you are, and I'm sure everyone will do that. Okay, so I'm asking each of us to make a pledge to do one thing. One thing. Now, some things you don't need us for. Some things you need our assistance. So when you contact us, we'll connect with you to point you in the right direction. And Susie Block is committed to making every one of these connections whatever you do matters. Each of us has a special gift. We are an incredible group of people. I've learned that over 12 years. And what we can accomplish together as a congregation is extraordinary if we take the leap and sign up. This is an experiment, and I'm so excited about it. I can't wait to what Nathan is going to agree to do. You know, you're not, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do in a second. That's what we're seeking, Kol Nidre, to proclaim the power that's in all of us, to regain our power as people, to stretch ourselves a little, to affirm how valuable we are to others and to God, and how much each of us can do to impact the world. Let us embrace within us our incredible potential for good. The power of one. The power of one. The power of one. Shana Tova.